All right, here we go. It's Flyers game day brought to you by Betway. There he is, Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus. Last game before the Christmas break. And we got to get right to this, Bri, because I had a chance to talk to Torts today around lunchtime.
Yeah.
And we had a sweeping conversation about the team. A lot of different elements, managing expectations with the group, a little psychology about where the team is and where it's going, and much, much more. So let's get right to Torts, and we'll be back. We'll get you ready for Flyers Carolina. So here he is, head coach. There's no video of him, so it's just a graphic, but here he is, the head coach of the Flyers, John Tortorella. Flyers Daily, we're going to talk some pucks. We're going to talk some hounds, hockey and hounds, and joining us is Flyers head coach, John Tortorella. Torts, how you doing?
Good, man. You?
I'm doing good. Do you feel like you're all set for Christmas and everything? Everything in order there?
No.
It's tough with this schedule, isn't it?
Yeah, I'm. That's the furthest thing from my mind. I hope I'm not being ignorant about that. But my wife's handling all that stuff.
She's used to it at this point.
Yes.
Torts, how do you manage that 21 games in 40 days? Because you got to manage emotion of players. You got to manage energy levels. You know, there's so many elements to managing that situation. That's a lot of games.
Yeah, we looked at this stretch back when it started and planned out our practices or lack of practices, really trying to get them as much time, certain times away from the rink, or at least off the ice. And that's where it's come into a lot of tape work. But you know what, Jason, the biggest hurdle for us as we've gone through it is just keeping them in a positive frame through the lack of success. And that wears on you mentally, and then it breaks you down physically when you just struggle to get the results. And quite honestly, I think our guys have handled it really well. It's something we've really focused on and have had many conversations with our players about through this.
Yeah, because as long as they plug that big shiny scoreboard in, you want to end up on the right side of it. And to take, elements of progress is not an element of victory, isn't it?
Yeah, and especially for players.
Yeah,
they're the ones that are doing the work. They're the ones that are putting on that uniform every day. We're looking at tape and we're busy, but they're the ones that are going through it. And they just look at it differently. The amount of work they put in their practice, the tape work, and the game itself. They want something at the end of the night that's positive. And unfortunately, it just hasn't been consistent. I think we're getting better. Speaking as a coach again, it's not the whole result, but I have to look at how we're proceeding and are we progressing, and I think we are. So I can kind of live in that world a little bit. They can't. They just want the result, and so that's something we have to respect and also coach.
Is that something you dealt with in past year ones in your career? Because year ones everywhere you've been, you haven't been a playoff team. You come in and you take over a situation. And you have to kind of do what you're doing here, setting a standard and also, setting the organization up for an arc of success going forward, because you've done that everywhere by going to the playoffs for many years after, not one and done. You went on an arc with each one of those teams. Has there been a difference with this group than in your past?
Not really. I mean, I don't think I don't think I've gone through so much losing in a space of time as far as not getting the result. But it's basically the same kind of mindset you're in. And I can't, and it's a very important part for the coaching staff. We can't overshoot. We can't expect more than we think they can handle. It doesn't mean we don't hold them accountable, but I think you can do some damage to building a foundation of a team if you want it too quickly, when you're just not ready to go there. And I've made mistakes that way with individuals and with teams, is you want it so badly, you forget about and you miss some steps. And that's when you start spinning your wheels in the mud. And we're rebuilding here. And it's from the ground floor. And we need to build it the proper way without skipping steps.
Yeah, you don't start putting in a vanity bathroom at this point. You got to get the plumbing and the electric and the foundation so the house stands first, right?
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
Let me ask you, the element of goaltending, I think, is really important for a team in this position, because if you get goaltending, you can then keep your players in the mindset of playing meaningful minutes in games. If you're not getting goaltending and you're behind in games and there's big gaps on the scoreboard, then it can get really difficult and sloppy. That element, I think, is really big for you guys to be in games.
Yeah. And Carter does it for us again last night, and he's been. It's difficult. It's a hard job for our goaltenders right now. Although I think the past week we begin to find a way to score some goals. I think we're beginning to release ourselves a little bit offensively. But it's hard because there's just there's no room. There's no margin of error that we can overcome if you're not scoring some goals. Like we have a terrible 8 minutes in that second period where we turn the puck over, and it's almost like we're playing against two opponents, not only the Maple Leafs, but ourselves.
Yeah.
We have enough problems right now trying to beat the opponent with a different color jersey on. We can't be our own opponent. And I think that was one of the biggest downfalls after playing a really good first period of kind of beating ourselves and allowing Toronto to get themselves going. And your goalie needs to be the guy to keep you there. Carter found a way to crawl back into it late in the third, but just not enough.
Towards the one thing too, when you have a team that can outscore their mistakes and outscore poor structure or poor system play, that sometimes leads you in a direction too that why play a system if we can just outscore the mistakes, but you're not in that situation. So that, I imagine that helps you teaching.
Yeah. And we just finished our meeting here. We had an 11:30 meeting, and I showed him some clips of that 8-minute span from the start of the second period to the 12-minute mark. And where we have to me, Jason, it's a temperature check of the game is where the momentum is. And that is structure. That isn't a physical skill. That's a mental skill to understand where we're at in that game. We were struggling. We were turning it over. We didn't start the period well, and then we just kept turning things over. Even if there's sometimes plays to be made during that span, maybe we just don't try to make those plays for a few minutes and get the puck in deep, because that's what we needed to do. And that's a big part of winning in this league. And that's a mental skill, and that is part of structure. And it's like I want to put a red light on the front of the bench when we're going through that, where it's danger. We need to simplify here until we get our feet back underneath us. Yeah. We've gone through a lot of that this year that we have to get much better at.
It's a discipline. And when all else is failing, rely on your structure, the thing you can control. You mentioned that, you're getting some goal scoring now, and you're getting it from under 25-year-old players. We know about TK and, the way he's been putting the puck and then at 14 goals on the season. Frost has had a bit of an awakening as well. And maybe Farabee is taking his game back to a higher level.
They're playing better. Frosty, I didn't like him the first half of the game last night, but he started playing better. Joel is slowly coming. Makes a really good move to get his opportunity late in the third period there, and goes 5-hole. Had some other opportunities, had a chance to tie the game, but he just got his stick stubbed right when he was shooting the puck into the open net. So the pucks follow him a little bit, and I like the two offensive lines. I kind of flip-flopped the centers late in the game, and we created some offense, and So as I said, coaches need to hang their hat on something, not always the result, to keep them sane. I think some of the young guys are beginning to progress, and even on our back end too. I think we're getting better there.
It's important for those guys 2 steps forward, but not to take 3 steps back. They got to keep that going.
Yeah, you can have a half a step back. You just don't want to fall off the cliff when you are. And Tip the same way. I think Tip has been inconsistent, but I think his inconsistency aren't such a big dip. He finds his game quicker. So that's the world we're living in right now. We're going to proceed this year in trying to progress that way and take these small steps forward and trying to get better.
Towards managing the middle of the ice with your centers has been obviously a challenge because you don't have a lot of depth at that position with injuries and other situations. But managing the middle is difficult when, you got guys that don't have a lot of center experience. You like to be big and strong up the middle, but that's just not in the cards right now for you.
Yeah. Casey's done a really good job on the defensive side of the puck. Frosty has played better there. Not a real big guy, but is playing better away from the puck and battling for pucks offensively. Like last night, I've been using Kevin on the wing, but when we needed some more offense, I bumped Casey out of there because he's struggling a little bit offensively and try to give Kevin a chance there to create some offense for us. So it's an ever fluent position and a very important position in our game that we're dealing with here. But it is what it is, and it's a challenge, but it gives people opportunities to get minutes that maybe they weren't getting if we were, if I was with Kevin, I just feel more comfortable with on the wing. I think it keeps him away from situations I don't think he just feels comfortable in. So we're going to move with it and try to find our way.
Yeah, with Kevin, it mitigates a weakness and accentuates a positive to create offensively. Yes. Bradshaw was tasked with dealing with Rasmus Ristolainen, and a guy that has kind of overplayed plays in his past quite a bit, but Shawsey seems to have him playing a lot more inside the dots, not chasing plays. And you got Risto with Provorov for a while now. What have you seen out of Risto?
Yeah, much better stick, much better understanding about positioning. Him and Provi chased a little bit, lost some good ice last night on the third goal. They were both behind the net on that goal. We just showed that this morning and we showed a contrast of some of the good things as far as positioning versus running out of position to really chase nothing and put yourself on the outside. Those are things we're constantly teaching with our back end, and especially with Risto. Risto likes going for the hit, which we want. He's learned to keep his stick down, to get stick on puck more now. And we just don't want him running to get the big hits, running out of position and have him chase the game back to the net. And I think he's improving tremendously on that part of the game.
Torch, one of the things you said when you got hired was about the fractured room. Now you lose Atkinson for the year as well, and he was going to be a big element for you in that locker room. Obviously, Couturier being out. How have you felt like the room and fixing the room has been?
I think it's grown. Like I said, if I knew. If I felt there was a captain in there and alternate captains and all that, I'd have all the letters spread out there on their uniforms. I'm going to wait that out this year, see where we're at next year. I got lots there with the A. I just think he leads by example. He's not a real, doesn't use his voice a lot, but just through his example of how hard he plays, I felt he was the guy for right now. But through some adversity and through just some of the inconsistencies we've gone through, I think the room has stayed together. And as I said early in our conversation here, Jason, that's hard to do when you're not getting a consistent result. And I respect the guys, how they've handled themselves, and they've stayed together. They seem to get along, and they play for one another. Again, not total results, but I think it's taken the steps in the right direction.
Let's talk about something that they always get along. That is the dog owner and the dog. Whenever you go out, you come home, the dog is happier than hell to see you. And we have got I love this dog, by the way.
Oh,
this dog is Casper. Let's tell the people about Hockey and Hounds and Casper, this bulldog.
Yeah. And first of all, you've got to get on the site, philadelphiaflyers.com/hockey and hounds. And if Casper isn't the right name for this dog, I don't know what is, because he's just staring at you. It's a 5-year-old bulldog mix who was rescued from the Pennsylvania SPCA Humane Law Enforcement, as usually happens, trying to find these dogs that are in harm's way. They've done a great job in getting this dog healthy. And one of the note underneath them, as I'm reading here, is he needs some problem. It's not a problem, but has some manner problems, as a lot of dogs do. But it just looks like a fantastic dog. And you got to get on the site and look at him. And I always say to you and the people I talk about when we're on this segment of the show, the names kill me. That I love the names of some of these dogs. So take a look at this one. He's a beauty. And one other note, Jason, as we've talked about with the Philadelphia Flyers and PAWS and SPCA joining together, 26 dogs were named after players. 22 of them have been adopted.
That's fantastic.
That just makes my it's just so great how the area out there in Philly are jumping in here and trying to help these dogs. So really good stuff there, and I hope it continues. And so it get on the site. You'll get a lot of information on that site, and hopefully we can keep on trying to help these animals and cats. Cats are looking for homes also. Some of the players grabbed some. Over the past couple of weeks, they went in and adopted some. So it's not just the dogs, it's the cats also, along with other animals.
Yeah, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com/hockey and hounds, all the details on adoptable dogs of the week. You can see the picture of Casper, and he's going to look at you and melt your heart. There's no doubt about it. And plus, the Hockey and Hound shirts are available, supporting John and Christine Tortorella's Family Foundation for giving back. And you can learn more about the foundation at TortorellaFoundation.org.
And you make Yeah, and I want to make one last thing. With our foundation, I just want people to know that goes directly to shelters in need. That money goes directly. So a lot of players are buying them for Christmas gifts, really cool sweatshirts and T-shirts. So get in on it here. You not only get something nice to wear, but you're helping especially some of the rural shelters. It helps them directly right away.
Oh, great. That's great work. John, thanks for doing this as always. Have a great holiday, and a little bit of a break coming back on the 29th out in San Jose. By the way, if I was commissioner of the league, a team from the East Coast would never play a West Coast team at 10:30 at night. 10 o'clock? Okay. We don't need this extra half hour business.
Take that up with Gary.
I will. Thanks for doing this, Torts.
Jason, be well. Merry Christmas, everybody.
All righty. There he is, Flyers head coach John Tortorella from earlier today. He loves the dogs, man. I love it.
Yeah.
Big dog guy.
It's a good thing to get involved in, that's for sure.
Yeah. And boy, he had a lot to say there regarding he really didn't like Morgan Frost's first half of the game the other night. I think we're getting ready to join our radio coverage. So
we're getting there.
Hold off on that just for a second.
It is funny though, while we wait.
Wait a minute.
So, I saw there was some discussion online over who he was talking about, and you thought it was Konechny at first. I actually thought it was Joel Farabee he was talking about. And then I went back.
Did you hear the question like faintly?
Yeah. and then, I went back and realized like you did that it was indeed Morgan Frost, which I guess surprised me a little bit. We're doing a weird, road broadcast from home thing here, so I'm not paying as much attention as I normally do, but I think maybe I just didn't see Frosty's first half of the game as well as he did. So,
yeah. Well, Torch, sometimes that's messaging too for a guy not to let his foot off the gas.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
That goes into the equation as well. Don't start feeling, because Frosty said after the game that it's the most comfortable he's felt.
Oh, did he? Okay. Yeah, I know he was very comfortable after the last game, after the Columbus game. And
yeah. Let me see if Tim has lines, because I'm not seeing anybody posting them.
I'm going to change my headsets.
And welcome to Flyers Game Day. As Brian Smith, Jason Myrtetus getting you ready for the final game before the Christmas break. And the Flyers are in Carolina. They've made it. I asked Torch before we started recording our interview today how the travel was, and he said no issues. So they must have got in nice and tidy.
I think they got out early enough that it wasn't much of a problem for them because, like we said, with the timing and everything, I mean, they were in the air before like the Pittsburgh game with Carolina had even started. I think it was like 5:30 they were in the air. So it was probably just wet there by then. And, it's probably pretty fortunate that they got out when they did. I mean, I didn't hear about any teams having any issues getting to where they needed to. I don't know. I'm sure some of them were late. I know there's been some officiating issues. There's a couple.
Aren't there always officiating issues?
Well, yeah, not, but other kind of issues, just like they can't get to the city. So there's a couple of like AHL guys jumping in for a game up in Edmonton, I think, or something like that.
Wow.
Just trying to get through this last night before the break. There already were a handful of games that were rescheduled because of this. So
Ryan wants you to bring up your level a little bit.
Nice that we're getting it in. Bring it up a little bit. How about
that? There you go. Now you're sounding good. Carolina, the team they face tonight, and that Sam Erson's going to face. And by the way, it is Erson.
Yep.
So if you hear me say that, don't tweet me and tell me I'm saying his name wrong. That's how he has said his name is pronounced. So if you got a problem with me saying Erson, text him. All right. Sometimes we get that actual pronunciation from a guy, and then people give us some guff because they think we're saying it wrong, but it's Sam Erson.
I also found out that it was Sam.
Yeah, he prefers Sam to Samuel. If he hears Samuel, then he knows he's in trouble. That's the old rule. But Carolina, boy, they are on a heater. They've been unbelievable. They've won 11 of their last 12, I think, and they're 11-0-1 in their last 12. The one they lost in overtime was against Anaheim, oddly enough. But they've been getting it done. They came back and won last night in Pittsburgh with an OT win. And is it Ronta going tonight? Because he went last night.
We thought that it was going to be the other gentleman whose name I'm not even going
to check off.
But they're going with Ranta again tonight, which again he has been the backup this year. It's kind of interesting that they would go with the backup 2 in a row. I don't know if there's an illness involved or a little tweak or whatever, but maybe just not wanting to risk anything. Who knows? It is a bit of a weird call, though.
I mean, Kochekov is like a 928 and a 194 goals against average, and he's 10-1-4 on the season. There's got to be an underlying issue there. Although Ronta's a good goaltender. I mean, they got 3 good ones here. They also have Freddie Anderson, who's played 8 games this year.
Yep. And he's on IR right now, so I guess you don't want to necessarily tempt fate. I guess with your other good guy, who knows? It's interesting call there, but it's going to be again one final game here for Carolina before both these teams head on the break, and you just hope that they can try to take advantage of this travel or something like that. Little bit of advantage they have from getting there before Carolina did last night, because they have not lost a game in regulation since November the 23rd. So
Holy cow. Calendar
nuts.
month.
This team has been rolling along.
Yeah, I mean, that's a calendar month.
It's funny you mentioned when I kind of snickered when you mentioned Anaheim, because I'm thinking to myself, well, Boston lost to Arizona, and you got Carolina losing to Anaheim. Well, guess where the last team that Carolina actually lost to was Arizona back on November 23rd.
Yeah, that's the NHL in a nutshell. One of it's strange because one of the elements of their team that's not very good is their power play. They got some good weapons. I mean, you've got a guy like obviously Svechnikov and Aho, Brent Burns there now helping out on D, who has 9 power play assists and 2 goals. But they're a team that hasn't been striking on the power play. A little bit of a difference between the power play of Toronto that the Flyers faced yesterday. But that being said, you can't live in the box. And this team plays fast like Toronto, a lot of skill. You got to make sure you're moving your feet because you don't want to be grabbing guys and interfering like what happened in that second period yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, you take a look at this run that they're on. If you take it past back to the last 11 games, so that's going back to their last their next to last overtime loss. They only have 7 power play goals in that run in that 11 games, and they have scored way more than that. They've scored upwards of 20 goals in that time frame. So they've been getting it done at even strength. They do have 1 shorthanded goal in there. They picked that up the other night in New Jersey. So it's it's been a team that's really been cruising as of late.
Yeah, they absolutely are, and well coached. They're going to be a disciplined team. I said this on Flyers Daily, Bri. Quick answer from you on this because we got to get to Tim and Coatsy. But I said Rod Brindamore is not going to let his team mentally leave early for the Christmas holiday.
No, that's that kind of thing does not happen under a Rod Brindamore coach team. So that's going to make it even more difficult for the Flyers here tonight.
No question about it. Well, speaking of not making it difficult, that would be Tim Saunders and Steve Coates. They got the countdown to face off. All the first period action as the Flyers take on the Canes. Last game before the holiday. So everybody enjoy your hockey. Stay tuned. The countdown to face off the first period action after this. You've been listening to Flyers Game Day, brought to you by Betway on the Flyers Broadcast Network.